The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, Medicine for These Times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Medicine for These Times. I'm honored today to have a new guest, Stephanie Canavesio, here with us from Ibiza, Spain. Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Beth.
It's so good to connect with you. You know, I remember I met you at your gorgeous Manhattan loft. I can't even tell you what year that could have been, 2013, 14, 15, or 16. One of those years, probably, because we both had Melissa McKay as one of our teachers, or at least I would call her one of my teachers.
Yes.
And then I think I just started following you and watching your journey, and it's been so interesting and exciting to witness the unfolding.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was thinking earlier today, for some reason, when like the last big radical time change was in my life. And there are two dates. One, it was like 2008 when I met Gabor Mate, who walked into the loft like you, and then had this big shift. And then another one was in 2014 when finally I got sober. And as soon as I got sober from alcohol and drugs, because now there's all these terms like California sober, this sober, like I'm Ibiza sober, like we still use psychedelics. But anyway, I got sober at that time, and then my life really changed because all of a sudden you have this whole new perspective to see everything. So I remember meeting you then, and I'm super grateful to have found meditation in 2013, 14 to kind of to channel the anxiety that came.
Oh, yeah. It's so interesting because that's when I'll never forget, I had a therapist probably 10 years earlier who kept telling me to meditate. And I kept saying, oh, I run a lot. That's my meditation. But then when I found Dharma Punks and Melissa and Josh and Kathy, yeah, it was life-changing. And it was right around 2012, 2013 when I was going through huge life changes as well. But I would love to hear your story, which, you know, I've only heard bits and pieces of it. I've never heard the full story. And it's funny because I knew of your husband's work a really long time ago. I think some films. But yeah, what is your story about, you know, you were a model and then, you know, on this path, and then now, you know, you're a therapist. But let's hear a little bit about, you know, what led you on this path. And I also would love to hear about the drugs and alcohol, because that was a huge part of my own path. And then getting, you know, I guess I would call myself kind of the same thing, Hudson Valley sober. Let's hear your story.
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, I believe I was like looking back, I was destined to live this life that I've had in order to be today where I never ever thought I would be, kind of leading others, and especially now focusing on, there's in Ibiza anyway, there's so many therapists and facilitators and coaches in training. This idea of being a therapist or trainer or coach is so appealing, but when you turn the wheels backwards, it really, for me, it came through experience. Like, it's like there's only so much knowledge you receive from the outside, but it's how it's the life that you have and how you've integrated it. And that's the same with psychedelics. It's like I began using psychedelics in the 90s, but I didn't understand, and I wasn't really shown that the work began after the ceremonies. So they were super cool, the ceremonies. I went to Peru in 1998 in Tarapoto. I ended up spending a month with a group of 6 people there in the forest. It was a vision quest that lasted a week, and then we kind of stayed on, and we were drinking every night. I drank like 18 times. I remember it. It was just at the beginning too, when there were no, I had The Way of the Shaman was one of the books I had, and Cosmic Serpent of Jeremy Narby, who actually has become a friend since. So like it's just, and then it's just epic to think, Daniel Pinchbeck, for instance, later on when I read Breaking Open the Head, like these were the first books that spoke about, and obviously the Carlos Castaneda books. But it was also mysterious, and nobody really talked about it. And especially nobody really talked about the work after. And I think that's why I do what I do today as a therapist, is understanding that, touching these beautiful places and touching these realms, which are completely awesome, is fantastic. But what are you going to do with it? How are you going to embody it? How are you going to take what you've learned, integrate it to allow yourself to grow into your highest version of who you are, and then take action instead of being lost like I was from 98 until like 2015. That's like a career in spiritual bypassing. But, because what I was going to say is I still continued with my addictive behaviors. Like I had my medicine journeys, which I just called them plant circles back in the day. And then I would go back to Paris. I'd take, as much cocaine and champagne as everyone else was doing, and as much as I could, felt like shit about myself. Didn't realize this pattern that I kept on going into perpetually, and then I go back to heal myself. And so I was caught in this kind of this seesaw of just healing. Like I wasn't even healing anything. I would say I was addicted I was a bliss junkie, and I was a drug and alcohol addict. So that was what happened to me until 2008. Already became friends with Daniel, had read Breaking Open the Head. We started at our loft in New York, receiving writers and philosophers and thinkers and movie makers, anyone who had started having a voice in New York City. That's why I love New York City. It's like that the downtown crowd would come over and we'd talk about these things. And we'd, smoke DMT, and we'd like talk about the aliens, and we started having all these conversations. And it was awesome. It was awesome. But then I realized when Gabor Mate came to stay with us, that I was actually filled with anxiety. I was filled with dread and fear and shame that I wasn't even aware were driving my life. And I was a constant worrier. I was focused. I had this idea that if I'm nice to everybody, that I would have a great life and everything would unfold with ease and grace just because I was a good person. But that's not how the universe works. And I didn't understand, which I understand now, is that there are certain laws in the universe. There are spiritual laws, and they might feel really personal, but actually it's quite impersonal, but we take it personally. And those are our stories. So as soon as I started working with Gabor and going as a patient, I would not as a patient, but going on his retreats with ayahuasca, but then he added the therapy after, that he would lead these circles. And I thought it was absolutely incredible to go into our emotions. I had no spiritual life. outside of the psychedelic journeys I was doing before, until I started doing the inner work, specifically with Gabor. And then I started realizing, yeah, sports were not meditation, because I used to say exactly the same. I was like, my yoga is my meditation. It's a moving meditation. Yeah, no, you really get to notice your mind when you're still, and you, yeah, and that's where we begin to face the truth of what's going on inside. And so that was, so my journey, I would say, began began with having a lot of fun, and then becoming really addicted to being absent, and then finally becoming present with sobriety, and then spending now since 2014 on the practices of embodiment and staying present with pain, because I really realized that pain is our greatest teacher, and emotional pain, physical pain, the pain of the stories that we tell ourselves of our own unworthiness. And so I made that my focus. I went back to school in 2014 to study contemplative psychotherapy with Robert Thurman and Joe Loizzo in New York City, and then started studying with Gabor compassionate inquiry, which I studied then for the next 3 years. And then now meditation. I became a meditation teacher with Melissa McKay and Mindful back in the day. Yeah, and so that's a long-winded answer. Until now, where I'm still learning. Like, I know nothing now. I'm still figuring, like, trying not to figure anything out, but just like making my way in through the dark, I say.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, I can relate so much to that. Having these amazing, what I would maybe refer to as spiritual experiences back in the days of like the party, like the party days of, back then it was just called doing drugs. It was never called doing medicines because it wasn't used as a medicine. But finally getting to this point of realizing like the self-destruction, that there was always a seeking for removal of the anxiety and the depression and the avoidance of life in general, and like the pace that everything was going. And it was like, I don't know what for me, it took a series of initiations, but it was the recognizing like, wait, this is a downward spiral. It's not getting better. Like, you feel good and then you drop, and you feel good and then you drop. And it's just this constant, cycle. And then even turning to the good medicines that make us feel better, but not getting to the root. And I know, because that's actually how I started on it as well, where it was like, well, wait a second, I feel good for a few weeks and then I just go back to the same patterns. And this is something I've talked about for years on this podcast around getting to the root of the problems, because the media, and I'm curious to know your take on this. What I started noticing years ago is the media would just say like, oh, mushrooms will cure your depression, or like, get rid of your anxiety with microdosing. And I'm like, oh, wow. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. It's so much deeper, and you're shaking your head. Yeah. What are your views on that? Because I'm sure you still see that around.
I mean, if you begin to understand just how imprinted we are in every sense of the term, imprinted, our minds are imprinted, our emotional imprints, the way that we hold on to the way that we maybe have repressed our emotions in the past, because we didn't really know how to express them if that wasn't modeled to us. I think many of us just didn't grow up with a generation of parents who were present, who had the luxury of tuning into their emotions and creating space within themselves to feel. They were more, it was a more mental culture, generally speaking, at least with my parents and with their parents. They were my mother's parents were Greek immigrants. They were very poor. They were working to eat, and they had trauma. that was undigested. And they, my father drank and my grandfather drank. That was just what they did. They were Irish and English, and my Greek grandfather too drank alcohol. It was how they numbed the pain of their own of the wars that they went through and of the hardships. That's just how it was. Like, can't really argue with that yet, or we've come to a really peaking of our culture where so many people are ill and diseased, and the amount of mental illness. And I was just listening to some research about how 30% of Americans, and in the UK, of humans are taking antidepressants. And that's a lot of people who are taking antidepressants, and they work for many people. I think that's great. But then what are we pushing down yet again? And why are we living in such an overwhelmed and stressed society where we have to do that? So I began to question, because I realized, like, the only way that I can really be of service is to change myself on a deep level, and to understand, how am I running from old programs or conditioning about how to be, who to be, what success is, what's a good girl, what's a bad girl, like, don't, all of this programming and the belief systems about who I was were running through my head. And until I was willing to really understand what my mind was doing, and that I wasn't my mind, and that I had the ability within myself to watch my mind with meditation, then I realized, if I can watch my mind with meditation, I can also tune into the sensations of my body and feel what's actually underlying my thoughts and my feelings. And that when I do that, I realized, actually, I feel a lot better, and I can meet myself internally in a way that nobody, or no drug or alcohol or even psychedelic, could really meet myself for a longer period, longer than 2 weeks after.
Yeah, like actually permanent, lasting change that actually leads to real fulfillment and happiness, and the kind of antidote for the depression, anxiety, and trauma that so many in our society are struggling with. And I get it. I was just talking to someone, I can't even keep track of the conversations, and it's only Tuesday, where just in the last 4 days, I've had numerous conversations about, our world, especially, I don't know I feel like it must be different over there. Maybe, maybe not. But, I'm right here in America during election year, and there's so much distraction, and there's also so much, pain, and we hear about it, we see it, the younger generations as well. There's just so much narrative of, like, oh, it's such a hard world, and, like, life sucks, and, the earth is getting destroyed, and humanity, and, it's like, there's the doomsday narrative, which of course is so painful, but then there's just so many, people checked out in the world. And then people complaining, like you just said, 30% of populations on antidepressants, and people complaining of more isolation than ever, and more loneliness and lack of community. And I'm wondering, what have you witnessed over the years, like in this kind of realm, like what the pattern is, and what do you feel like there's hope for a future, or for future generations, or is this an American thing, do you think? I'm always curious. Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely have so much hope. I mean, I couldn't do what I do, the work that I do. I couldn't look my fear in the eye until I realized, actually, behind all of that, there is this beautiful, I mean, okay, so I want to be, like, grounded when I say this. I know that we're getting through this, but I do believe that it depends on each and every one of us to step into our empowered selves and to no longer allow ourselves, because it's a frequency, it's a tendency to go back into the old belief systems, the fear and the shame. We can all do that. It's like within us, we have that capacity to go back into our pain and our old stories. And in order for us to really anchor this in, it also means that the transformation occurs when we allow ourselves to turn towards our own what we don't want to see in ourselves, our hidden selves, or our shameful selves, or our survival selves. There's so many different ways of phrasing it, but to understand that it relies on it depends on each of us how we're going to choose to be with those parts of ourselves. Because if we're watching the world hoping it's going to change, it's not. If we're watching like this is a spectator sport that we're watching on the news, and that somebody's going to come in and wash away what's happening, and I'm American, I see what's happening, it's not. That's why I believe that the true shift right now is within each and every one of us individually, when we make that choice to step into our empowered self and no longer stay back in the old stories or our wounds. And this is hard. It's like I'm talking about it. It's really tough, especially like today. I saw 3 clients, and when I'm on and when I'm working, I'm in that energy. But as I feel outside in the collective, it's really strong right now. The fear and just wanting to let go and give up and fuck this and all that. I feel it, and this is when we need the most to just lean in to the awareness that there is hope and we have it within us. It's like that. It's so hard to grasp. And most of it is asking for us to step into an unknown place, which is completely new and has no guidebook. And there's nobody that's done it before. But that's what's going to make emerge the new systems that we need to structure our culture.
So well said. So perfectly said. And you also said the one thing, because I remember when I went through it, and I see this with clients, and it's, we just referenced the Hopi prophecy recently about, there will be many that grip onto the shore, trying to hold on to the old ways, but it's time to let go and let the river take you. And it's really hard. I mean, I remember, even now and then I still make jokes. I'm like, did I really sign up for this? How did I get here? It would just be so much easier to drink beer and watch TV.
Yeah,
that's my
I know. It's
ongoing
like
joke.
Once you step off the shore, you're in it. I know many times I was like, this is just too much help.
Yeah.
That's why there's 2 things that come to mind. That why we moved to Ibiza is because we have a community of friends here that all, and in Hudson Valley, we have quite a few friends too, who serve as support. We support one another because one person is going through a separation, loss of a job, or divorce, or something, disease, and then the other. We're a big community here of it's not the people, it's the people who live here who are dedicated to helping in a true sense, and then resourcing from spirit, like understanding that we don't have to figure it out mentally, but asking for help was like a really big, and that's why I really attribute so much of who I am to psychedelics, is because they showed me the other realms. so that I really understood, oh, wow, yeah, there's the physical, like I'm sitting in a room right now, but there's a lot going on out there. And that everything that's going on out there, you can call it what you want, you can name it what you want, but it's an energy. And I feel part of that energy. And that actually, like after just understanding on a deeper level that we hold that energy, we can hold that energy within our human body. And that's also what empowers us as well. So like we have resources, and that it's like asking for help, like learning to pray, all of these things I didn't learn until later in my life. Really, I think my mother taught me later a lot about praying, but when I was younger, we would go to church, but there was always this separation between us and the God in church, in the Greek Orthodox Church. And until I really realized, I am like churches everywhere. Like I don't have to be. I love being in churches. I love being in temples. I love being in caves. I love being in places of stillness and silence. That's where I resource myself. But it's a choice. Like you have to remember to call, like to go there.
So beautifully put. Yeah, exactly that. And I love that you mentioned, emergence and not having to think about it, which is something I've talked about. And, a lot of great thought leaders are reminding us that, it's not going to come, the solutions to this world are not going to come from this distracted mind state of like, okay, how do we now 3D print a glacier? I've actually heard this before. I'm like, is that really the solution? Like these bandages, it's kind of the go-to of the human story of like, how do we just cover it up and, try to do the quick fix when, really there's this like deeper emergence that I think a lot of us, and I think a lot of people know, it's like, it's there, and like you said, the prayer practice and really doing your own work, like one person at a time. It's so important. I have this question that's lingering because, recently you shared about your TED Talk, which is amazing. And then, like I said, I've followed your husband's work. I don't even remember how. I think there was an old film that he made I saw when I was younger that was just quite interesting. And I had known of that, his company. But, you've shared some posts about with you and him. And I'm curious, when you were going through this depth of your transformation, were you in this marriage and how did you navigate that? Like, were you both going through it, or was he just kind of like, I'm doing my own thing and I'll meet you? And then I think, weren't there also children involved too?
Yeah, no, it was all of that. And none of it was, it never unfolded, I would say, like with ease and grace. It was all very clunky. Let's see. Yeah, because thanks for listening to the TED Talk. Yeah. It was an epic like opportunity to really speak like from my heart and to share that story and to understand how in my relationship, and in all relationships, whether they're with family members or friends or lovers, how I projected my unmet needs onto my partner. And then I blame him for that, like for not, it's like so easy. It's so unspoken about. And so originally—
That's most relationships do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's why and then we leave a relationship and then we end up with exactly the same psychopath
pattern.
But the psychopath is actually, we're the psychopath. Like nobody's a psychopath. That going back to the laws of the universe is that we have mirrored back to us, like energies mirror each other. So if we're feeling inside, and I just want to say, because it's coming up, but in psychedelic trips, when you feel that I felt that I was, being haunted by a dark spirit or something was attaching to me. But it was attaching to me because I had that darkness within myself. And so we're like, get it away, but it was like matching me. Like I was still using drugs and alcohol and hadn't done any shadow work. It's so easy to blame and project onto others our own Psychoses, yeah.
The story of the world right now, it seems.
Totally.
Point fingers
totally.
externally. I'm like, wait, no, inward.
Totally. No one wants to be shown their darkness. I mean, it's really uncomfortable. It feels really shitty when somebody calls you out. The last thing you want to do when somebody says, can you take responsibility for your emotions? Like, people, like, that's not what you do or say, but it's understanding that we all do that. Like, the first thing is to blame it out, because it's so uncomfortable to say, oh, wow, that's coming from me. It's so humbling. And especially if I was just really struggling in the marriage to be a perfect housewife, a perfect host. And Gabor came in and he saw that I was like neurotically trying to make him comfortable, to host him. And he said, what's going on inside of you? Do you mind? Can we take a moment? Can I ask you some questions? And in like 3 or 4 questions, he's like, but what are you afraid of? Like, what's your biggest fear? And no one had ever asked that directly to me, and that in a very compassionate way, not like what's wrong. It's so much about having a third person who's compassionately looking at you like a parent that you never had. So it was like, whoa. And I realized that I was creating. I had basically, I didn't know who I was, really. I was completely lost inside of myself and filled with fear and anxiety. And so that woke me up. It's like, okay, I need to get sober. It happened really quickly. I was like, I have to stop drinking. This is like, I'm killing myself. I mean, I can. It's I could have continued. I have a lot of friends that just continued, and I see them today. It's really interesting to see people in the same loops. And I'm really glad that I chose to get off that roller coaster, or like the Ferris wheel. It's like, if you don't like the Ferris, like I used to feel like I was a hamster running in a cage. And it's like, if you don't like running in the cage, get off the hamster wheel and get out of the cage. The cage was my mind, and the hamster wheel was just my chatter, my thinking, the mechanisms of the mind. It's like, get off, get out, come back into your body in the present moment. This is the greatest gift that we have, this technology. Now are you ready to use it and to take care of it and to honor it by stop like throwing it into the trash every night that you drink and do drugs. It was like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. But I needed that. So, I mean, I'm grateful for those years. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then it's time to grow up.
That's what I always say. I'm like, those were really fun days. And looking back, I don't know about you, but I look sometimes at that past and I'm like, it feels like a completely different human. Like physically, because it was so disembodied, although it was fun and it was party time, but it's weird. It feels like a different life.
There's quite a few people have mentioned to me that a lot of the people, like there's a lot of people who are really self-destructive who went to alcohol and drugs because of the attraction to that spirit, like to altered states. And having that experience now, it's much easier when people are coming to you, I'm sure coming to me, and who are suffering in that way. I know now, I understand what's happening, and it's not a dead end. It's it's a gateway to a new life. Yeah. And I was, 40, almost 40. So it was I just decided another thing too, like I want to age well and naturally and authentically. I don't want to become like some things that I was seeing. I don't want to go that route. Mm-hmm. So I better like myself. And if I don't like myself, what's holding me back from liking myself and loving who I am? because this is the only body that I'm going to have right now. So I might as well, like, use it to the max, like in a good way.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, I feel younger.
Yeah. You look great.
You also feel so much younger when you're sober.
Yeah. Yeah. The amount of energy. It's funny, I do appreciate you saying that as a former model and, the New York lifestyle. And I know because I lived it for 21 years straight. And, it is interesting to watch people. And I always wonder, like, I look at Madonna and hey, no judgment. She was an idol of mine when I was quite young. But I'm like, wow, I can't even recognize you. And I wonder what that comes from, like if there's, I'm sure there's an explanation, like these deeper patternings of, I don't know, and she's just one example, but I'm sure you see this around a lot.
I mean, one thing I love about Ibiza is there are the most beautiful women here in their 60s and 70s and 80s. They are just stunning. And there's not just one. I'm getting up into that. I downloaded the book Power of the Crone, the woman who wrote Women Who Run with the Wolves. I'm listening to it and it's spoken in her voice. And she speaks so much about how the wisdom that emerges after 50 and how that's just this epic power that women hold and can look forward to, and that we are needed, for the next generation. And trying to stop my age or hating myself because I'm not 20 anymore, it's not going to get me any younger. Actually, it's going to make me look super bitter. And, I want to look, I want to look happy and joyful and embodied, and not trying to be like I'm a 30-year-old in high heels, and like you said, no judgment. Madonna looks amazing. That's her choice. But I want to give women over 50 another way of not doing the plastic surgery and all of that. Like that's possible to be good, healthy and happy in our bodies that God gave us, or that God, that we chose, or whatever, it's like, whatever. It's like this,
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm curious, when I saw your TED Talk, which I told Stephanie, I'm just naming it out there in the world. This is my dream. It's a lot of people's dreams. One day, maybe sooner than later. But what made you share so vulnerably? And maybe you could tell the audience a little bit of the gist of what the TED Talk was about. It's like you could really talk about anything, but like why something so deep and vulnerable?
Well, I don't know if I told you, but it was originally a couples talk, and we were going to speak about navigating the unconscious expectations in relationship. But it brought up so much that soon after, it was very clear that we were not on the same page. It wasn't really flowing, I would say. We got into a lot of arguments. It really stirred up a lot of the unconscious, as things like this do when you make a choice to speak up. And I wanted to speak from my heart, and I wanted to share. And what came up was all the years in New York that what it revealed, what I would say, what it revealed to me, what my relationship was, my long-term relationship was revealing to me about myself and my own feelings of being unworthy, and how they were showing up in the relationship, and that they showed up through my husband asking to go to a sex party without me. But then it was a whole, I explored in the talk. I guess I decided if I'm going to share, it needs to be something from my truth. And because really stepping into my power meant also creating boundaries in my relationship of what I was okay for and what I wasn't. And to understand that my husband had a different path of healing. And that was through exploring his own sexuality, and also going to tantra retreats and being vulnerable with other women. That was important for him. He couldn't do that work with me. And I honor those women that he worked with, and he continues to go. He really likes Ista, level 1, level 2. It works for him. This this type of work. Working with arrows. It doesn't really appeal to me. But does that mean I'm supposed to say to him, no, you can't do that? It's like, I remember Esther Perel said long ago, like, we expect our partners to be our lovers, our best friends, our bank managers, our co-parents. That's a lot to expect from one person. Like, I'm not really here to tell my husband what to do or to change or to fix him, but I can support him to go do the work for himself. And actually, what happened is I let go of my whole story that if I let him go to a sex party or a tantra retreat without me, that he would leave me. And in reality, he didn't. Not only did he not he didn't leave me, but he came back a better person and more in touch with himself. And so he was a better partner. And I'm really glad that we didn't destroy our relationship over this, which we could have.
God, what a deep lesson. I know. And that's, I mean, you guys work with couples? Because this is so big, and I mean, I think everybody listening knows relationships are great as healers, right? Like, it's just such a mirror, and it's hard to navigate. But I don't know many couples that could go through that and have that kind of level of emotional awareness of what you just said. Like, you know.
I mean, it wasn't, I didn't want to go through it. It was really uncomfortable. There were many times we both thought, or I thought, that this wasn't going to happen. Why is this happening to me? It really revealed so many stories of conditioning about what a marriage was supposed to look like. And yes, I don't have shame, around sharing it, because it was true. And it really was. Looking back, yeah, we speak to a lot of couples now about what we've experienced. It's like in Ibiza, we love sharing our time with other couples, and we have round tables at our house where 5 or 6 couples sit together, and we share like what's going on right now. And I have weekly groups in Ibiza where I've created, this, following the compassionate inquiry of Gabor, these circles where we can share vulnerably. Because if we don't share our vulnerability, we don't grow. It just doesn't work that way. It's like vulnerable is the wound. It's a soft spot. And if you look at trees that grow, or flowers as they grow, as they open up, it's at the softest spot that they emerge. So we can't expect to transform ourselves without acknowledging where we're suffering.
So beautiful. I'm so glad you're doing that work, by the way, because so many people, it's hard, especially, it's great if you have community, but there's so many people that are just kind of isolated in their home unit and maybe don't even have other couples that they can talk to, or people that they can relate to, or maybe, most of their friends are just like their, children's friends, parents that maybe they don't even have anything in common with. I hear that a lot, that happens. But, a question that I had kind of coming up as you were sharing earlier about, the history of the drugs and alcohol, and that kind of spirit, and that wanting to reach an altered state, or, whether it's wanting to be dissociated or wanting to find, a deeper level of consciousness and awareness. One thing I've wondered about myself that I've seen out there in kind of the psychedelic world, is how much I wonder if that pattern of escapism or dissociating is actually repeating in, let's say, the medicine world. Because there's been some arguments out there like, oh, you go to certain communities where you go to a party and there's it's instead of whatever it used to be smoking a joint, now it's like just hape every 15 minutes, or whatever it is.
Or ketamine. There's a ketamine problem in Ibiza.
Yeah, well, ketamine's always been a party drug, and now it's a medicine, but it's still like highly abused. I was actually just talking about that last week. Yeah, it's like, what's ketamine therapy versus doing ketamine every, once a week or twice a week? Is that really therapy? But yeah, I'm curious, like, what are your views on this, or what have you seen out there?
I mean, if there's distraction and avoidance and bypassing what feelings everywhere now, we can use it in the medicine world, and it looks more cool because it's spiritual. I mean, I'm watching my eyes sometimes, like, and my mouth drop open when I see what's happening right now in the medicine world. But it's like, I trust that the medicine knows what it's doing. It's like it's working through everybody. And if it works anyway, like it did through me, is that you have that newlywed or the honeymoon phase with it. You think that you have the savior complex that comes where you believe that you're the one, that you have this so much to offer to people, and you get on this, like, the Christ, like that you feel much more powerful and better than others and all that. And then you're like, whoa, that's not real either. And then you begin to do the deep work. But now even the deep work is people are throwing around a lot of phrases without really embodying the work. Because on Instagram, it's all the phrases and this and, oh, you're like that. It's like, okay, guys, okay, like, but how are you speaking to the person next to you in the room? When you're getting your gas, like, how are you driving your car into how are you actually transforming or changing the way that you behave and the way you speak to people? Are you kind? Is everything that you need necessary to say, or are you addicted to your own voice? It's like so much is power. There's so much power in not speaking. And now, within the age of social media, everybody's oversharing, like, everything. I share a lot too. So I'm even questioning, do I really need to share something? Is this really important? It's really difficult right now because there's so much information. Information is overload. We're like drunk on information. I take stillness breaks. Like, every couple of hours, I lie down, I put my hands on my body, and I just tune into stillness, saying, I love stillness. I love stillness. Like, I need to come back out of all the different realms. So I forgot that your question, but it relies on each of us to take breaks all throughout the days to come back into our body, and not when we're watching others or judging others, because that's another addiction. It's like, I'm so good, I'm so like this, and judging everybody else. It's like, if you're judging everybody else, you're not really in the present moment. You're still looking to others to compare, like, I'm doing this, they're doing that. But it's like, our culture is designed to keep us trapped with social media. Yes. I use social media. It's a trap. It's like the biggest drug that we have going now, because it's so enticing and, and it's distracting, and there's some good stuff out there. There's some great podcasts as well. Like, this is what you're doing is amazing. And it's important to have different voices, But when we're spending all of our time bringing in information, like when are we actually embodying it, like bringing it into our heart? And this is this whole shift right now is coming from a mind-centric world into a feeling heart-centric present moment self, because this is where our power is, and nobody can control us when we're in our body. But when we're in our mind, look at what's happening. We're massively they're being swayed left and right, and it's kind of scary. That's why I really, like most people these days, I try not to listen too much to anything that's going on outside that isn't necessary. My husband tells me the news.
Yeah. That's how I feel. It's like if someone said, we don't know what to believe. What do you listen to? And I'm like, myself, And yeah, I always say we're going to know what's going on in the world, whether you listen to it or not, or give it any energy or not. I mean, there's no way to avoid it these days. But yeah, I do believe, the answer to everything is, like you said, like doing our own work, like walking our own path, coming inward. And, it might be hard for a lot of people. I mean, sometimes I think, like, how is that ever going to happen? But I'm curious, what are your views on, like, where this is all going in the world? Do you think we're heading in a positive direction? Like you even mentioned, Instagram now is like this, people think they're therapists because they read a few posts on Instagram, and now they have some buzzwords, and now they say like, oh, you must be a narcissist. That's my favorite one. It's like, oh my God, everybody's a narcissist now. Even though there's, varying definitions of that. But yeah, like, what are your views on the future of humanity, the world, the planet,
Well, for me, it's like, first of all, I love this conversation. This is how we vibe. Like, it feels really good to be speaking with someone who is energetic, and this is like energy. How are you allowing yourself to become more energy? Because it's like we have our physical body, but we have our spiritual body, and we have our energy body, which runs through our system. And so this shift that we're experiencing, I believe, is really about coming online energetically. And when I say energy, I mean soul. So, like, really being who we truly are authentically, beyond the conditioning, beyond the programming, beyond all the narrative. It's like, but who are you really? Like, are you really honoring not who you think you should be, not who you want to be, not who looks cool, but like shedding all the layers to come back into the heart of the present moment, and to come back to love, and to then be that love, walk that love, and like, not in a cheesy way, but being open and expanded and curious, like a child. It's like, if we would each become more like our childhood selves and listen more, and instead of thinking that we need to prove something. And like right before today, I do a moment to connect with myself before, and it's always like connecting to my curious child self, because that's who we are. Like, that's before the traumas, before the disconnection, before the incidences, whatever. It's who we were before, like, as a child, like discovering the world. And if we can do that, I believe that's where we, really create from. And I have a lot of hope. I don't have any idea what it's going to look like, but if I don't have hope, like, I can't live. I need to believe. So that's why I always do. I always remember to connect every day to what's important to me, and what my heart is longing for, and do that in my day. And that's why I live in nature. I take my dog for walks. I reconnect to my friends. I do the work that I do, what I love, but it's extricating myself when I notice the old stories coming up, because they do. And instead of allowing myself to go into that rabbit hole of the unworthiness or the feelings of rejection, it's like, yeah, I know that place now. I can talk to that part of me, and I know that's not who she is. I can be with her. It's not like, get away. I hate you. It's like, because energetically, when we push things away, they just come back. So yeah, it's having it's being surrounding myself with community. It's in a smaller space, like creating a space for myself with meditation and calling in what's important to me every morning and night. I do my light connections to connect to the divine realms and to Mother Earth, like simple things like that, which remind me, like, okay, Stephanie, you're okay, you've got this, and you're protected. Like, you keep going, don't stop now. It's like, that's what I keep on hearing. So that was a long-winded answer. Excuse me.
It's beautiful. It's the antidote for so much of the suffering that I think so many have right now. The level of like the fear. I mean, at least what I'm seeing there in the world and social media and America, and just, the divisiveness. But, that's actually, it's interesting. That's been a mantra of mine for a few years now. It's like, what's most important? Like I mean, I just hear rumblings. I'm like, is what happened at the Olympics most important? Like, I can't even follow what's going on because it's like just mishmash. And I'm like, there I am, like watching a monarch butterfly being birthed. I'm like, what's more important to me? You know what I mean? Like this deeper, yeah. I'm like, it's the answers are right there. Like you said, the curiosity. I love that antidote. That's something I prescribe to my clients nonstop. It's like, we have to take the mind piece and put it aside and like just go play, like without expectations, without, the programming of, is this going to succeed or fail? And like, who am I? Constantly asking. Like I was just at, like a mini retreat over the weekend, and I was like, yeah, I'm constantly dying and birthing a new version of myself. It's like, yes, I know who I am, and I don't know who I am. Like you said, like, I don't know anything. Still learning. It's like, and
like using the tool of discernment, like the Maria Kondo effect, when she brings up, does it bring me joy? And just as quickly as that, and then let it go. Like, get rid of it. If it's not bringing you joy, like, understand we have the power of choice, which is the divine power of choice to choose where we put our attention. So what are you going to put your attention on? Are you going to put it on the Olympics and this and that? I do too, for like 10 seconds. And then it feels like, who cares? Like, maybe all of this craziness is doing what it's supposed to do. And the chaos, it's really giving us this opportunity to fine tune our awareness, to choose and to be really focused right now, like shooting an arrow onto what we really want, and to not get lost in all the muck.
Beautiful. This has been so good. Well, let's, I would love to hear, where can people find you? What is it you offer, and anything coming up, in this year, in the next 6 months?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, I have a website, presenceembodied.com, and on Instagram, Presence Embodied. It's an approach to healing that I created, which kind of merges compassionate inquiry with contemplative psychotherapy, and also use the Fademan protocol of microdosing when needed or when asked. And I work one-on-one and in groups online and in Ibiza. And I have a Path of Wholeness, which is going to begin in September, which is a weekly group for 6 weeks, where we meet once a week and share like what we're experiencing, and That's been amazing. Just to understand that we have a global community online if you don't have access to that wherever you're living. And then I have retreats. I have a retreat in Ibiza, October 17th to 20th, if you want to come to Ibiza. And that's awesome because then there's transformational breath work, ecstatic dance. We could do hiking with microdosing and sweat lodge with an incredible woman here, curandera, and and yoga and meditation and the group therapy, compassionate inquiry. So that's happening.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's the Future of Consciousness, Daniel Pinchbeck's course, but that's beginning 25th of August. I don't know when this is coming out.
Oh wow. Oh, that's so soon. Yeah, I don't know when this is coming out either. 3 to 4 weeks ish. We usually run about a month ahead. But we'll share the link anyways. That's amazing. Are you one of the teachers for his course, or?
I'm leading a meditation or two.
Oh, amazing. Beautiful.
No, the teachers in the course are awesome. I mean, it's really the originals. I call them the real deal, like the wise generation.
Wow.
If you look at the roster of who's there, it's like, whoa.
Oh my God.
Look it up.
Look that up. Wow. Amazing. Well, we'll have your links right here in the show notes so everybody can check you out and follow you online. And I'm so glad we finally got to connect and do this. It's really just been so beautiful. And I actually remember you were the very first person. I don't know if you were in his first ever class, the Mate's compassionate inquiry. I remember being like, what is this? Let me check this out. And you were one of the first people I knew that graduated. And then, of course, I now know numerous people who've gone through that, including some good friends. So,
yeah,
amazing.
No, it's been awesome. I really recommend it. It's understanding that you can really share what you've experienced. So the biggest healing of the compassionate inquiry is going through it yourself and actually revealing the unconscious beliefs and behaviors and patterns first within yourself. And so that was really eye-opening. So really powerful stuff. Thank you so much.
Good.
It's been so much fun to talk to you.
Yes. I appreciate your time, and we'll bring you back on here soon enough.
With pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.